All right, folks, if we could get your attention. So we're gonna start off with a quick clip that will show you a little bit about what the Peabody Education Foundation is all about.
In the heart of the North Shore of Massachusetts lies the city of Peabody. Populated by 52,000 people, Peabody is home to 12 schools, all with a common goal of educating the next generation of leaders within our community. From Peabody teachers to school workers to caring parents, it takes hundreds of people who work tirelessly to create an enriching environment for our children. A small group of individuals work alongside these great forces, and together they help enhance the quality of the Peabody public education. These individuals formed a nonprofit called the Peabody Education Council, known today as the Peabody Education Foundation. The foundation is made up of city officials, community members, business leaders, and educators who work behind the scenes to bring innovative programs and events to Peabody Public Schools that the students would otherwise not be able to experience. The signature program of the foundation is the Best Bet program. Every fall, the Peabody Education Foundation offers Peabody public teachers an opportunity to provide their classrooms with programs, field trips, and resources that are outside of the normal school budget. Since 1985, the Peabody Education Foundation has worked endlessly to raise over $1 million from within the community to bring these innovative programs to our public schools. The Peabody Education Foundation introduces students to future career opportunities by hosting the annual Career Day and the Career Speaker Series at Peabody Veterans Memorial High School. These programs give students an opportunity to get a closer look at what it takes to get into a specific job field and to learn from local business representatives. Another buzzworthy program offered by the Peabody Education Foundation is the annual Higgins Middle School Spelling Bee. The winners from all 3 grade levels go on to compete in the finals held at the North Shore Mall, and the grand finale winner goes on to compete nationally at the Scripps National Spelling Bee. The Peabody Education Foundation also offers a guest reader program where business leaders, city officials, and local citizens spend 20 to 40 minutes per week reading to students in grades K through 5. The purpose of the guest reader program is to show students the pleasures of reading and present them with positive role models in the community. During presidential elections, the Peabody Education Foundation sponsors a program called Kids Voting. Throughout the year, students learn about the government and the voting process, and on election day, the students accompany their parent to the local polls and vote with a special ballot. The results are tallied at the end of the day, and the winner is announced in the schools the next day. The Peabody Education Foundation provides enriching opportunities like these for our students to learn and develop into the future leaders of our community. Along with offering these great programs, the Foundation holds an annual George Peabody Legacy Award. The award recognizes and honors the educators and philanthropists from within our community who have provided a lifetime of contribution to our educational system. It is our goal to not only help and support our teachers and educators, but also to recognize them for all that they do that goes unnoticed. The Peabody Education Foundation is only able to provide programs and events like these through the generous donations of our local community. With your donations, the Foundation is able to put programs in place that encourage creativity and spark inspiration from within Peabody's students. 100% of all donations received go directly to Peabody's teachers and students to help enhance their education. The Peabody Education Foundation is a 501c3 organization, which means 100% of your donation is tax deductible. Help our foundation continue these great programs by making a donation today and investing in our children's future. To get involved with any of our programs or to make a donation to help fund any of these innovative programs and events, please visit peabodyedfoundation.org.
Not bad for a group of volunteers. We're quite proud of what we've been able to do. And tonight, we want to welcome you here to our 7th annual George Peabody Legacy Award. Before I begin, I'd like to give a special shout out to a few people here who've contributed to bring this event and make sure that it's a success. You know, every team has MVP, and I've been fortunate enough to work with this MVP for several years at Greybock. and she's also joined us on the Peabody Ed Foundation. And everything you touch tonight, whether you're looking at a sign, a booklet, an invitation, or the things that you got in the mail, were all created by that lovely lady back there, Christine Bruno. And her partner in crime is Jillian Rizzo over there. Not with us tonight because she's not feeling so well is Mary Bellavance, who does the hall for us, along with Daryl. And we have special shout out tonight for our bartenders, Kathy and Sarah Gravel. We've also had a lot of assistance in this. You know, we wouldn't even be able to serve you a beer, or you wouldn't be able to be here if it weren't for Natalie Maga. She did all the behind-the-scene work. We had a ton of assistance today from the City Hall staff, Cookie, Tom, the Graybock team, all the PEF board members. Could the PEF board members stand up just so that people know who you are? Thank you. These guys deserve your round of applause because they show up and listen to me every second Tuesday of the month at 7:30 a.m. without any bribe for food or breakfast. And finally, to our sponsors, it takes a lot of sponsors to be able to put on an event, and we've had a lot of good sponsors this year. They're all in the book, and we certainly appreciate what they've done. So thank all of you. The shout out goes out to all of those people that have helped us put on this event for the past 7 years. Now, you saw in the clip, the Peabody Education Foundation is 34 years old, and 34 years ago, this idea was born that, almost in a, what if we had a way of raising money and helping our schools with both financial and human resources? What if a teacher had a great idea and we could fund it with that money? And what if we did all this just with donations, not with tax dollars? And we had the birth of the Peabody Education Council. Then Mayor Terigian, along with the leaders of the union, school administration, and a lot of civic staff decided this was a good idea. And if you got to put it back into context, this was right after, several years after the strike that had kind of separated us as a community. And it was a good way of trying to bring things back together and bring the reality that education is so important to this community. And I think it's great that we finally grew up and we're now a 501c3. And that just means that we're able to raise money in different ways than we were before and able to take advantage of grants. I think you saw over 34 years we've been able to raise a lot of money. We've been able to provide thousands of students with programs, special offerings through Best Bet that they would never have seen otherwise. If you go on our website and you take a look at some of those Best Bet grants that we've given and what the result has been, you'll be fascinated. There are a couple of videos there that you can see. Even later this year, you'll see a new video on one of the Best Bet projects we funded this year, which was robotics. And we actually followed this project from beginning to end. And we're really proud of what our students in Peabody were able to do in that program. And then our mentoring program, our career program, I can't say enough. We've had this business community pumping, even though we're probably not as well known. We've had this business community pumping and helping us all the way through, showing kids exactly what it's like to be in certain positions and careers. And every year it's different, and every year the careers that people are looking for are different. But it's been a great ride. And then, of course, we've educated people on how to vote and how to perform their civic duty. Not their civic privilege, but their duty. And the one thing that we've been able to do over the last 34 years is remain the best kept secret in Peabody. So we're trying to change that, and we hope that, when you look at tonight's event, that maybe you'll be inspired and you'll go on to our website peabodyedfoundation.org, make a contribution, or volunteer to help, because we can use both. So tonight's event was, the genesis of tonight's event was thinking with people about, everybody remembers somebody who helped them back when they were in school. And typically it was a teacher, but it could have been another type of a mentor. And those people motivated us and challenged us and made us feel important enough to learn something. Some of us came from not such great roots in terms of affluence, but we came from places where we needed people like those in our educational community and like those being honored tonight to show us the way, that there is a different way than just going to work in the factory, which was an honorable trade, but many of us didn't even know what college was. These are people who are typically the unsung heroes in our community. We tend to recognize sports figures quite a bit. We tend to recognize educators quite a little. But if you put in perspective what that educator does for our community and for our children, we should put them at the top of the list in terms of their recognition. I believe tonight's group, like the other 6 years of recipients, did more than what was ever asked of them and influenced our most precious commodity, the children of our city. And so for that, I thank you this evening in advance, all legacy recipients. And if I could the prior 6 year, any that are here tonight, please stand and be recognized? Prior legacy recipients. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you. So we would like to invite up our newest superintendent of schools, Ms. Kara Murtag.
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. I'm going to be very brief tonight. As always, I'm the last one to know that I'm speaking. So, but I'm getting more comfortable with this, and I love that. But tonight we are here, and it's an honor to be here in front of all of you, and the educators that are being awarded tonight, and the community members that are being awarded tonight, the people and the families and the children that you have impacted. I am, I think, getting a little emotional, because each one of you have played a role in my life. Every single one of you on here, Jody Pedro, Ernie Osborne, very close to my dad. Carol Isles, first year teaching, my friend, always there. I taught 1 year at St. John's in Peabody with Sister Lenore and Carol Isles, and always right there if I needed them. What do you need, Kat? What do you need? Jack Marshall and his family, and Maria Ferry, who continuously impacts my life every day and helps me and helps our students. So I'm honored to be here tonight. Congratulations to all of you and to all our educators in this room. I'm proud of you each and every day for what you do for our students. And congratulations again to the people for the past 6 years. So have a wonderful evening, and congratulations once again.
Wow, Kara, that's as quiet as I've ever heard you. Usually I can tell when I'm in a crowd with Kara. I can hear that voice from like a half a mile away. So, next up on our agenda, we would be remiss, and certainly we appreciate the fact that he can be here this evening. We'd like to have a word from our mayor, Mayor Ted Betancourt.
Well, good evening, and I'm very honored to be here tonight to share in the recognition of and to offer my heartfelt congratulations to the very worthy recipients of the George Peabody Legacy Award. I also want to thank the Peabody Education Foundation for this wonderful event. I am proud to be a very small part of such a caring group of citizens who year after year provide the schools, educators, and our students with the additional resources they need. I have always had a very deep love for this city, And that feeling is deeply embedded in me because of the warm, supportive, and challenging environment that I grew up in. And it all began with my experiences as a student. I am a proud graduate of the Peabody Public Schools. From kindergarten at the South Memorial School through my graduation at Peabody High School, I was continually blessed to be surrounded by administrators and teachers who cared for me and my classmates and worked hard to provide me with the tools I needed to pursue my goals in life. I always say this, I could stand here right now and recite the names of every teacher I ever had. Some are in this room, and I won't call them out and embarrass them right now. But each one helped me in some way, and several made a deep impact on my education and ultimately my future. I am thrilled to know personally some of the recipients tonight, and I am fortunate to be able to call them friends. Each person honored today is a person of integrity and high character, and all the wonderful words and accolades that we will hear later about each of them are richly deserved. As an elected official, and more importantly as a parent of 4 young children, you hope and pray that your educational leaders and teachers are dedicated, committed, and care for their students. You put a lot of faith into these men and women to educate, guide, and challenge future generations. It is a great gift to have the opportunity to contribute in such a profound and meaningful way. The 5 men and women we honor today have left their imprint on our city and have impacted countless students. As a parent, you can only hope that people like the recipients tonight are those that touch your children's lives in their educational journey. I have a poem that I have hung in my office that I often reflect on, and I've read this at every event for the George Peabody Legacy Awards, and sometimes I think, maybe I'll change it a bit, but I always feel it applies so much to tonight. The theme is about the importance of being a community builder rather than a community destroyer, and I'll read it now. I saw them tearing a building down, a gang of men in my hometown. With a yo-heave-ho and a lusty yell, they swung a beam and a side wall fell. I asked the foreman, are these men skilled, as are the men you'd use if you had to build? And he laughed, he said, oh no, indeed, the commonest labor is all I need. But I can wreck in a day or two what a builder has taken a year to do. And I thought to myself as I went my way, which of these roles I have tried to play. Have I been a wrecker who walks the town, content with the labor of tearing down? Or have I been a builder who builds with care, so that my town might be better because I've been there? I love that poem, and I think it's pertinent tonight in honoring our recipients and their families. The work you did was essential. The impact you made was real. The support, encouraging words, and discipline you provided mattered to the children in your care. And as the poem asks the question, I can answer it for each of you. You were builders, and Peabody's a better city because of all of you. Congratulations to each one of you and your families, and thank you.
All right, let's let the awards begin. First up on the agenda is Jody Pedro. Did you know that the sum of the square root of any 2 sides of an isosceles triangle is equal to the square root of the remaining side? If you believe that line from the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz, and if you think that's correct, then you obviously did not take Mr. Pedro's math class. The Scarecrow's theorem was wrong, and Mr. Pedro would explain to his students that was the case. You see, this is the way he is. He takes everyday things that we think and do and turn them into instructional activities. That was the secret to Jody's success as a teacher. Jody has this uncanny ability to know how to engage and pique the interest of his students. Once he got their attention, he drew them in because he knew he could enrich their minds. Jody spent 46 years of his life teaching. Oh, by the way, I just heard he's teaching again. He's also been a coach and a mentor of students and athletes. He spread his thirst for learning to all those he taught and asked no more in return than for them to be curious and to learn. Of his 46 years as an educator, he spent 28 years here in Peabody, where he taught the 6th grade at the center school, the 7th and 8th grade algebra at Higgins, and then spent his last 6 Peabody years, where I happen to know him best, as he taught my children, at the South Memorial School as both an assistant principal and a 5th grade math teacher. When Elena Spindle, who was another legacy recipient who has passed on, moved to become superintendent in Dracut, she dragged Jody, to join her, where he then became a principal at Greenmont Elementary School until he supposedly retired. Well, that was not Jody. He really didn't retire. In true sense of the word, he decided to go back to the job that he loved the most, teaching. He joined the staff of Ross Lurgio Middle School in New Hampshire, and at this school, he taught the 8th grade algebra and geometry for another 10 years. Jody had returned to his passion, teaching in the classroom and inspiring students. And I'm willing to put $500 down that there's not one kid in that school who doesn't know that the scarecrow was wrong. Among many other career achievements during his tenure in Peabody, Jody pioneered the outdoor education program and the environmental backpacking program. Both of these were interdisciplinary approaches to learning. Both involved physical activity and integrated that with academics. That's Jody, always figuring out a way to make learning fun. He knew if he could capture your attention, he could teach you. He once created a program, which I didn't know about, at the center school called Eatly In. The Eatly In. I got a kick out of that one. In this program, all the 6th graders were invited in a full interdisciplinary approach, and they created wall murals of Italy. And literally, they converted their cafeteria into a Venetian Italian restaurant. Can you imagine converting school cafeteria tables into gondolas? Well, they did it. And little did those poor, unsuspecting students know that they were learning geography, math, the arts, and more. Throughout his life, Jody has been a gifted semi-pro hockey player, a coach who never gave up on those who were less talented, a beloved father, a grandfather, and a husband who adores his peg. He is the true lifelong learner, and he is the true meaning of the word teacher. It is for this reason that it's my privilege and honor to recognize Jody Pedro as one of our 2019 George Peabody Legacy recipients. Jody, your legacy will live in the many hearts and minds that you touched during your career. And for this, we want to thank you for all you have done and achieved. Jody. You're going to have to hold this thing and talk. Oh, you can use this.
I had a tough time with chewing gum and walking, so I don't know if this is going to
You
work.
can use that one if you'd like.
I don't know. It depends.
We-
Can you hear me with this one? Oh, thank you.
We
God.
want to show this beautiful clock
Oh,
that you received.
holy criminy.
We also have for you a certificate from the George Peabody Trust in London, certifying your induction,
What the heck?
and your Medal of Honor. Thank you.
Yeah. I didn't expect all this. I truly didn't. I didn't know what to expect when that letter came in the mail either. It was beautifully done, by the way. Whoever put that together, that was absolutely awesome. Thank you. This is all blowing me away. I have been in education for a long time, by the way, and this is quite a night. It doesn't get much better than this. You know, to do a job that you absolutely love and enjoy every day. And then every 2 weeks they pay you for doing what you love to do. And on top of that, later on in your life, they honor you with an award for doing what you love to do. Like I said, it doesn't get any much better than this. This is incredible. Thank you. I am honored to be receiving this award along with the fellow recipients, Jack, Maria, Carol, and Ernie. That makes it even more special, guys. I mean, Ernie and I worked together for years. And Jack, I'm not familiar with Maria or Carol. Thank you, Kathy Gravel, for nominating me. This obviously wouldn't happen if I wasn't nominated. Thank you, David, for your kind words. I appreciate that immensely. I could do the little scarecrow thing for you if you want when this is all done. But it's a true story. I could talk forever, so stop me if I talk too much. But you need to understand that when I was, and this is the story I tell the children, by the way. When I was in the 8th grade, I was watching the Wizard of Oz on TV, and I was also studying the Pythagorean theorem in school. And at the end of the thing, the scarecrow goes, and the sum of the square roots of an isosceles triangle is congruent to the square root of the third side. First of all, he says square root. And secondly, he's talking about an isosceles triangle, not a right triangle. And you're not really paying attention, but it hit me as, oh, there's no clicker, okay? None. So what happens is, I have to wait a whole year for that to come back on again. And I did. And I listened intently at the end. And I turned to my mother and I said, Ma, that was wrong. And of course, she's looking at me like, what are you talking about? Who knew I was going to use that in the classroom so many years later? Okay? So that's a true story. And later on, by the way, when they publish books about it, it's in the books. Now, I want you to know I discovered that long before anybody else did. So I want some credit. And thank you to David for your kind words again. You know, it was an honor to work with you two at the South School for 6 years. And it was indeed a pleasure to have one of your talented children, Katrina, in my classroom. I don't know if you know Katrina, but that is one sharp gal. And more importantly, guys, to have you as friends. It's important to me. Thank you to the Foundation Committee for selecting me as one of the recipients. I am honored and humbled to be here, obviously, and to be part of such a distinguished group of educators, many of whom I've had the pleasure to work with, or for. I've worked with Ernie and for Ernie, and all of whom I deeply respect. Jimmy Janulis is without a doubt one of the finest human beings I have ever had the pleasure to know, and he's a former recipient. I'm glad to be in the same group as that young man. What? It's hard to talk about him. John Murtagh, former principal of the Higgins Middle School, who I had the pleasure and honor to work for over a decade, is also a member of this group. I'm proud to be part of this group, which goes on for a long time, but I'm now a recipient, and I'm in that group of people, and I'm honored. Throughout my career, I have been a member of a team, and I've had a long and wonderful career. A little side note is the former principal I worked for up in Bedford called me last week and asked me to come in this Monday to work as a permanent substitute in mathematics in grade 8. And I made the mistake of saying yes. So I'll be back at it till the end of this year. I am a little tired this evening because I actually retired a second time for 2 years this time. That's twice the last time. But I would not have been successful, and it would not have been possible if it wasn't for the talented and committed teammates that I worked with all those years. I can't list them because my wife told me not to. I had a page and a half. She also told me my speech was too long and I need to cut it. And I only wrote it 2 days ago, and I saw her, by the way, I'll save that for the end. Again, I can't list them here, but I do have a few that bear mentioning. I have to take a moment to thank Tim Roach, He's a former principal of the Center School, and Tim offered me a position to teach sixth grade math in a team of 4 at the Center School when I came out of college. And I am indebted to him for that opportunity and for his support all those years. Thank you, Tim. In those days, they handed you a textbook, they showed you your room, and they left the rest to you. It's a little different today, strikingly so. I also want to shout a thanks out to George Cullen. George Cullen and I worked together for 10 years at the Center School. I want to thank him for his support and his friendship. He and I did after-school sports together. We ran all the field trips together. We spent countless hours before school, after school, helping children learn and working with children. Those things that you heard Dave mention, he put in extra hours. He didn't write them. He invested his time in those programs. They wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for George being my sidekick. It was awesome. And I have to say a thank you to George. Thank you to Janet Sakalakis, who happens to be in this room this evening, who welcomed me with open arms when I joined the 5th grade team at the South School. Janet is such a committed and talented teacher, and such a kind and giving person. It was an honor to work alongside her and Terry for those 6 years. Thank you, Janet. Thank you to Mary Scarry for your support and friendship. The family math night would not have happened without Mary. The MCAS remediation program, the first one in the city of Peabody that we put together, we had such tremendous results, would not have happened without Mary. Mary is talented, she is witty, she is creative, and she's somewhat of a prankster. I won't go into some of the things she pulled, but you can ask her. Thank you to the PTOs of both the Center School and the South School, because without a strong and supportive PTO, you do not have a great elementary school. And I've got to say that the South and the Center School are great elementary schools. And thank you to my family who's over here. Thank you to my wife, Peggy, who happens to be, unfortunately, in the hospital as I speak. She was admitted today. So this is a little bit more difficult than it should be. I want you to know that I believe that everything's going to be fine. I left her just before I came here. All of the tests that came back say that she's fine up to those. They're still waiting on more. I'll see her when I leave here. So if it looks like I made an abrupt leave, you now know why. But again, she is my partner, and she's been my closest friend for 51 years. She and I met at Salem State College. She refused to date me for almost 3 weeks. 14 times I asked her. I understand why, by the way. I was pretty obnoxious back then. But she finally said yes, and it worked out for me. I hope it worked out for her. Thank you to my talented and creative daughter, Ann. Ann, where are you? Ann's standing over there. Ann Madeira. She's a graduate of UNH, and she's the mother of 2 wonderful young adults, Matthew and Abigail, who are studying, we hope, studying for final exams at Boston College and Bentley University this evening, so they can't be here. And thank you to Ann's husband, Philip, who's standing beside her, Philip Madeira. He's been a loving husband as long as I've known him, and it's a blessing to have him in the family. He's a graduate of Northeastern University and obviously the father of those 2 wonderful children I mentioned. Thank you to my incredible son, Jamie, who's over there. Please wave. Thank you. He's not as shy as I am. He's a graduate of Worcester Polytech Institute, where he met his gifted wife, and I do mean gifted. She's gifted and unbelievably creative and talented, who is currently on a business trip for the company she works on. I forgot where he told me she was. Maybe it was maybe New Orleans. And finally, thank you to our newest grandchild, Katie, who happens to be in Jamie's lap. We get to do the grandchild thing all over again. Katie and I, a quick story. She just had a birthday, turned 6. She invited 20 children, one of whom was a boy named Andrew that she knew from daycare, but when they went to kindergarten, Andrew's in another community. Well, he ends up coming to the birthday party. And Jen, her mother, says to her, "Oh, you've got to be excited. You're going to have your best buddy Andrew at the party." And she goes, "Mom, Andrew is a friend. My best bud is Grampy." I knew I'd make you melt. I knew that was going to get you. That's not in here, but I had to say it. I would like to, and I don't know what's permitted here, I would like to share this award with all those committed and talented teachers that I worked for, that I would have liked to have mentioned tonight, some of them in this room, by the way. But in particular to someone named Miss Catherine Dunn. And I believe very few people in this room know who that is. I know Audrey does. Am I right, Audrey? Where's Audrey? Am I correct? My first years I worked with Catherine Dunn. She was 70 years old when I arrived. She's prim, proper, fastidiously dressed every day, structured, and absolutely brilliant, and 100% committed to children at 70 years old. The children would stand beside their desks and they would say, "Yes, Miss Dunn. No, Miss Dunn. Thank you, Miss Dunn." Now you can imagine the shock she must have had when George Cullen and Jody Pedro joined her team straight from the 60s with long hair, bushy mustache, bell-bottoms, and those ridiculous clown shoes we wore back then, okay? Can you imagine? Imagine she must have been shocked to the next degree. We worked together for 2 years, and we developed a bond and a healthy respect for what each had to offer. She went into education when she graduated from Salem Normal School at age 19. 50 years, over 50 years she was in the classroom. And when she retired at 72, 2 years later, she was as dedicated and committed to children as she was when she first walked out of that school. So I got to tell you, I'm sharing this with her. Okay? In closing, a quote. Leo Rosten once said, "The purpose in life is to matter, to count, to stand for something, to make a difference that you lived it all." What a thank you for making me feel like my life mattered in the world of education. And thank you so much.
Our next award will be going to, I never get the George part, Ernie Osborne. And because he hasn't been up at a microphone for a couple of years because he retired from the city council, we thought we'd invite his brother Barry up to once again don the hall, although he's a lot thinner than he was when he left here. Barry?
Thank you very much, Dave. And you may have committed a very big mistake. I just want to say one thing. Kara, before we start, I always try to tune into what people are saying, and Dave introduced you as the newest superintendent in Peabody. And I just want to pray that in 15 years from now, we introduce you as the newest, the latest, the greatest, and still here, Superintendent of Schools, Kara Murtagh. I want to thank the Peabody Educational Foundation for honoring my brother and all the other recipients tonight. Their dedication to education and their zeal for educating our children has earned them this recognition. But I really want to thank you for allowing me to introduce my brother tonight, because it's not always that you get the opportunity to talk about somebody who you've loved and respected and looked up to for your entire life. The fact that you're all here, you all know Ernie's journey through education here in Peabody, from the South School, right, to the Burke, to Higgins Junior High School, where, by the way, he taught civics, and thank you very much for bringing civics back into the curriculum here at Peabody High. Then he started his administrator career at the Higgins Middle School, where he worked as a headmaster for many years. Then from Higgins Middle School to the Brown School as principal of the Brown School. And from there to his most challenging job in education as the general contractor to the construction of the new Brown School. For it's there he had one of his biggest challenges in education. Because when construction was over, one of the many superintendents who will remain nameless, that's why, Kara, we need you here for a long time, decided that when they put the plaque on the new school, that his name should appear in that plaque 3 times. Well, that really presented a problem for Ernie, because he didn't want to shunt any of the other deserving people that names should have been on that plaque. But he found a solution. And they put that plaque on that building. And when confronted by that certain superintendent, who was really, really upset that he did not follow the instructions that he specifically gave Ernie, Ernie said, "I most certainly did, sir. Your name appears once on the front and twice on the back." Now, one thing I didn't know about my brother, and I had an opportunity to, was the sense of humor that he had. He was my older brother. He was the stoic one in the family, the one you looked up to all the time. And then I had the pleasure of going to a retirement party for one of the teachers, and lo and behold, he was the MC. I couldn't believe the stuff he was saying. Then I understand that it was him who had to take over for Bob Manning, who was the silver-tongued one with all the comedy, and when they had to left, they found Ernie to fill his spot. And I never realized the wit and sense of humor that he had. But to look at that journey, we have to realize how it started. Ernie went to school at the University of Massachusetts, and he majored in psychology. Can you imagine that? All right? But he minored in education, and he had an opportunity to do student teaching while I was out at Amherst. And when he graduated, he came back, and like everybody else, he needed a job. So somehow, he used the psychology to convince himself that he wasn't crazy for pursuing a career in education. But unfortunately, we're an English Protestant family growing up in Peabody in 1969. The chance of Ernie getting a job in education was very bleak, very bleak. No one would allow anybody from our family to join the AOH, where the actual picking of pool happened to take place. If you owned a bar stool, or your family owned one, you could probably get a job here in Peabody. But in all seriousness, we had to resort to something different. My father had to resort to his one friend who may have had a connection within the school department, and lo and behold, Ernie was able to get an interview. Okay? So luckily in 1969, it was chosen that 4 elementary schools, they were going to retain the 7th grade in these 4 elementary schools, and they needed a pool of teachers to fill those positions, okay? And all the principals of those 4 schools came in and started picking their teachers. And as luck would have it, okay, there was 3 positions left with only that English Protestant name left in the pool. So Ernie got his shot, and the rest is history, right, Ernie? But Ernie was meant to be an educator, because when Ernie graduated from college, he married his high school sweetheart, Carol Hodge. And by the way, congratulations, it'll be 50 years come July that you and Carol will be married. And he started raising his family. And the values that he learned from my father and my mother stayed with him forever. And he gave Greg and Leanne the feeling that first, family is first. The strongest ties you will ever have is with your family. You would have a strong work ethic and a set of values. And those were important to Ernie, okay? He gave his children every opportunity to both experience life and to succeed. And I say these things to you because that's the same thing Ernie brought into the classroom. There was nothing fancy about him, okay? Work hard, do what's right, keep your values strong, and you'll do just fine. And it was Ernie was always committed to those values. During the most difficult times in our family's lives, we lost our father at a very early age. It was my older brother, Ernie, that maintained those values that he taught us, that kept the family strong, that kept the family together. It was my older brother, Ernie, that made sure we saw each other. We took care of our mother, all right? It was my older brother, Ernie, that when he was going through his own personal times, when his son was not doing so well, he never faltered. He remained strong. He kept those values. And all I can say is, there are 3 Osborne brothers, and most will tell you that's plenty, that's enough. The oldest was Ernie, the youngest was Barry, and I had a middle brother, Chuck. Because of the age difference, Chuck was the one that sort of had to carry me around, take me places, because Ernie was a little bit older, okay? But I had a different view of Ernie, and a view that I will never forget. He was the one that I watched, that showed me the way, that showed me right from wrong, that did the right things in life. Not that my brother Chuck didn't, but I was sort of with him, not just watching him, okay? So, like I told you before, there's nothing fancy with Ernie. It's very simple. Do the right things, do your job. And that's what he did in the classroom. I never saw him. Those same values that he valued with his children, he brought into the classroom. The same expectations he expected from every one of his students. When he became an administrator, he respected his peers, he respected his staff. Yes, it wasn't easy all the time. Sometimes you have to do and make decisions that you don't like, but he understood it was his job, and he did it. And he did it very well. So, brother, congratulations. Your family and your friends are very proud of you today. And I know especially 3 that aren't here, that I have to look down from above, that are extremely proud. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce my brother, Ernie.
Wow. You never said that before. I'd like to start by thanking the committee for this wonderful honor. When I got the letter, I was, like Jody said, I was shocked. And it was nice to see such a diverse group of people that work on this committee. I didn't realize that it was that extensive. And you hear about the work of Dave Gravel and Tom Gould, how much they do for the city. And they don't just do schools, they do the city, they do business, they do a great job. But it's also nice to see that they work with such a committed group. And when I got this, I kind of went back and looked at it, because I kind of live like 3,000 miles away now. But I go back and I looked at the past thing, and I'm looking and I'm saying, every one of the people that they chose is right on, until this moment. But they really have done a great job, and it's such an honor to join such a great group. But when I got back to Peabody a couple days ago, and I was trying to see what's changed in all the years I've been gone, and I had the feeling that Peabody used to be where, as Barry was talking about, if you wanted to get a job, you had to know someone. So I kind of asked around, and I found out that hasn't changed one bit. I found out one of my favorite students, Andrea Licata, even got her husband a job in the city. I don't know what he does, but I know his name's Ted or something like that. But and how about Kara Murtag? Is that the greatest story ever? Huh? Those of us who have watched Kara and her family in this city are so proud that our school children are in the hands of a caring, professional Peabody person, and you're going to do great things. You stick to it. You're going to do great things, Kara. I do have to admit that I still am kind of a Peabody phobe. When it says on the school committee meetings or the city council meetings, 37 people watch this. I'm like number 26 usually in there someplace. But I really love, of course now I have to watch the Board of Appeals meetings too. But it really is a thrill. I really love watching the school committee meetings, because some of my former pupils are serving on the Peabody School Committee, and it really is a thrill to watch people that you work with and taught that are taking such a leadership role in our community, and it really is a thrill for me. And I'm going to have to agree with Jody, as I usually do, and he's a tough act to follow, is one of the keys to being successful, if that's what you call it, is you have to be surrounded by caring professionals that work every day. And no matter where I worked, in all the schools I worked, I was always surrounded by wonderful people who really love children. It wasn't easy sometimes, and few had their idiosyncrasies, but it was just a wonderful place, wonderful places to be working, and I was very happy. As Barry said, I started at the South School in that program, worked for a wonderful principal, Jack Birmingham, and I actually started working with a guy named Milt Burnett. I don't know whatever happened to that guy. Did he ever go anywhere in the school system or anything? But Milt and I, we walked in there one day, the first day, and Jack was great, and we went from having one mother to having like 23 mothers. because all the faculty there were senior teachers, all women, and they taught us a lot. First thing they taught us is there are reserved seats in the teacher's lounge. All right? And don't sit in the wrong seat, because Mary's been sitting there for 38 years, and don't ever get out of that seat. If you're a guy, you go where the guys go. Where is it? The boiler room. That's where the guys went. But we had wonderful kids there, and I went to the Burke School. I had a great group of people there. I worked with John Murtagh. I worked with, Jody talked about one of the great teachers he worked with. I worked with a great teacher. Her name was Pat Allen. And Pat Allen was just one of the most remarkable teachers you'd ever want to see. She could actually get away with, she could get in trouble. She'd look at him and she'd start talking to him and she'd say, "See, you're lying to me." And the kid was, "I'm not lying to you." She says, "I can see your nose growing. I can see it from here." And the kid would go, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Allen, I'm sorry. I lied to you." But I also work with a great guy, Jimmy Janulis, just the top notch. I then went to the Higgins Junior High, where I taught civics. As Barry said, I love teaching civics. I could talk about that for 10 minutes. But Jan Anderson, when she was inducted, I saw her speech. Perfect. I couldn't add one thing to Jan Anderson. She's just one of the great people. And I moved to the Higgins Middle School as part of the first administrative team with John Murtagh and Bob Gibley, Jane Wilson, Mike Ma. And, we worked very hard for that school to kind of break down the bigness. And I thought we did a pretty good job. And I remember so many things about that. Amongst them, we had those window decorating contests. My house would never win. But and we also had a great teacher. He's here tonight. Is Buddy Manning, who organized all the school dances. He had everything in line. Anything social at that school, Buddy was in charge of. He organized a trip to Washington, D.C. for every student as they went through there. Just a great guy, a good friend. And of course, I remember we used to have to do the chug-a-lug through the corridors to herd it through the grapevine. I don't miss that. But then, I had been in the school system for quite a while. I knew quite a few people. Kids would stop me, parents would stop me, and then it happened one day. I was at I guess they call it the mall, the shopping. I used to call it the shopping center. I was at the shopping center, and this group of people come up to me and said, "Oh, I know you." And I said, I went to say, "Yeah, well, she said, you're Barry's brother." And then this happened more and more and more. And I'm thinking, Barry, the little kid that was sitting on the toilet, I'd run in and flush it because I know he'd jump off no matter what was happening because he was afraid of getting sucked down the sewer. That guy knows more people than me. But then I was lucky enough to be the first principal appointed under ed reform. And that was kind of a challenge because up to that point, everybody was elected to that job. And I really felt a real responsibility because with ed reform, obviously came the standards, the curriculum, and it was very, very interesting. And I had enormous shoes to fill. Lou Sermon was, and still is Mr. Brown School and always will be. And I walked into a situation that was tremendous. I was real nervous about it. I'm all middle school, and I walked into the elementary school, and there was a great group of teachers, a wonderful group of teachers there, and so caring, so dedicated. The kids were great. The parents were great. And I'm thinking, and no one said a word. And I looked around this place, and I'd be in there at night by myself, and I'm thinking, am I the only one in the city who says I'm in a great school and that's in a dump? because they were all happy. They really didn't mind that the school lacked just about everything except great people. And it really was a shock to me. And then shortly thereafter, my vice principal was a veteran teacher, wonderful teacher. She just said, I'm out. And I was like, holy mackerel. So now I have to find a vice principal. And in those days, vice principals, probably still do, had to still teach a full load. And they made less money per day than the teachers because they had to work extra days. So I thought it was a big problem. I was so happy that Jimmy Janulis agreed to be my vice principal. And that was just the most important thing in that school at that time. Because if you didn't know, Jody talked about Jim, if you didn't know Jimmy Janulis, you missed out. If you did know Jimmy Janulis, you knew that, I don't know how to describe it. I could talk about him for an hour. He was just a unique individual. When we're building a new school, he was at the school. I was always at meetings. I said, Jim, we have to meet. We have to discuss some things. And he was just typical Jimmy. Well, Ernie, whenever you want, except I have to teach, then I have coaching, I have to referee, then I have to cut somebody's lawn, and do some work, and oh yeah, I have to charm the old ladies at Zumba class, but I can. How about 10 o'clock tonight or Sunday morning at 6 o'clock? But the thing about Jim was that you never really got enough of him. You always wanted more of him, and whenever you were around him, though, you had full Jim. You really felt you had everything he had to give, and I miss that guy, and I know many of you do. There was a learning curve going into being a principal of an elementary school from a middle school. I learned real early that male principals should not wear one of those stupid cow costumes at Halloween, especially going into pre-K and kindergarten classes where the kids wanted to hug you, and if you get my drift. But after many, many years of fighting for a new school, with so much support from the community and people in the school system, we were finally going to get our new school. And it was a real turning point. It was just a wonderful experience. And I had talked to other people in other communities, other principals who had gone through this, and they said, oh, you're going to love it, but you're going to hate it. And you can't, he said, they always say, you need a good committee. You need a good faculty, community committee. So I put the word out looking for a committee, and I got the best committee you possibly could ask for. And many of them are sitting right up there. And they did, you know, we sat down and we were determined, the one thing we had on our mind was that those kids and those parents in that Brown school area were going to get every single thing that they had gone without for 90-something years. And I had a little bit to do with the design, but the beauty of that school and everything else belongs to them. And they did such a great job. That's how stupid I was. We had to come up with colors, you know? So I'm thinking to myself, oh, that should be easy. We'll go in there, 3 colors, red, white, blue, nice meeting, we'll see you next week. No. It was, we need swatches, we need Sherwin-Williams palettes, we need floor tiles. They went for weeks picking out this stuff. But the results were amazing, and I think I always kid that the only thing they didn't decide was whether we were going to have 1 ply or 2 in the toilets there. I know I'm probably running along a little bit, but I just want to talk about my highlights and my lowlights of my education. One of my lowlight was second or third day teaching at the Higgins Junior High. Came from the elementaries, was told, This is junior high, it's not elementary school anymore. We need rules. Everybody needs to enforce the rules. So this year's rule is no hats. You see a student with a hat, take off your hat. So I do the first day, I stand outside my room, there's kids running everywhere, the bell rang, they're all, and here comes the student. And so I stop her, I says, we have rules here, you can't wear hats. I need you to take that hat off. And all of a sudden, this beautiful face and this little brown eyes look up from this Popeye the Sailor hat and said, "I'm very sorry, sir, but you see, I have cancer. And I'm going through chemotherapy, and I lost my hair. And I really would like to keep my hat on." And it was that moment I said, never again am I going to be in favor of zero tolerance policies when it comes to kids. Adults, one thing, but not with kids. And yeah. And that day, Don Fellows, I still remember that name, taught me a very great lesson. Then the other thing was not a highlight was cleanup day at the Burke School. The Burke School, when I was there, had a reputation for being, we used to call it like a lover's lane place at night and on weekends. And so the principal assigned Jim Janulis and I on Monday mornings, you will go out to the teacher's parking lot and you will clean up what's left over from the weekend. So we followed suit. We went out there. We actually, it got to be a game. It was like Easter morning. The two brothers. First of all, it was who can get more. My favorite was who can complete the rainbow first. You probably have to think about that one. The other thing that I really hated was crossing a picket line, and I know Dave Gravel mentioned that I hated crossing picket lines with people that I loved and worked with all those years, and just because you're an administrator, you were told if you don't, you're gone. And I'm so happy that we haven't had to go that route in such a long time. But it is terrible, and make sure we never have to go through that again. And it takes both sides. The other downtime was serving on a redistricting committee. I don't know what I did to deserve that honor, but that was pretty bad. I know it needs to be done occasionally, and we might have to be looking at it now, but not pleasant, not fun. You really need to have dedicated people with thick skins. My proudest moments was watching Albert Giello. I don't know if you remember Al Giello, but a special needs student, Albert Giello, scored the winning point at the Higgins Middle School inter-school volleyball game, and the whole school got up and applauded that kid, and it was just a great moment. I also love working with the Holocaust Center of the North Shore with sweet Harriet Wax and Sonia Whites. That was great. I was also put in charge of safety security before it unfortunately needed to be really ramped up. I love working with a great group of elementary principals. We really worked well together. We were a strong team. I love those guys. And obviously watching the Brown School family walk through the first day that new school was built, to watch those kids walk in, and then actually being present when the Brown School was actually a home team, a real home team, for the first time in 90 years. Barry stole my favorite plaque story. I love that story, but that was one of the highlights. My retirement, I tried to be the best grandpa I could. I tried to work with my son. Unfortunately, he succumbed to his brain cancer. And I have to tell you that from the moment he passed, within minutes, I started receiving, my wife Carol and daughter Leanne, we received just an enormous support from Peabody. I've been gone 10 years, and I was getting cards and letters and former pupils from across the country, all sending me best wishes. My family flew out to be with me. My friends flew out to be with me. I wasn't much company, but that support from Peabody was just tremendous. I always appreciate it. That's why Peabody, even though I live 3,000 miles away, will always be my hometown, and the Peabody School Department will always be very close to my heart. Thank you very much for this compliment.
Ernie Osborne, thank you. So Barry, one thing you learned from your brother was how to talk, obviously. Holy mackerel. All right, good night, everybody. I have the honor of introducing Val Shipman, who would like to present her mother, Carol Isles, with the Legacy Award. Val, if you'd come up, please. And I'll be back up to help you present.
Okay, I won't be that long. Oops, what's up? I know I didn't tell you, Mom, that I was doing this, so I'm sorry for the surprise. Try not to cry, because then I'm going to break down. So again, I thank the George Peabody Foundation as well for the opportunity to introduce somebody who has been, I don't know if you know this, she's kind of a rock star. So my sister and I would be with my mother whenever we were out at good old Purity Supreme in West Peabody. That's a little throwback for people, I know. Our Mandy's Pizza and Lynn, our North Shore Shopping Center. We would literally be accosted by people who would come up and say, "Mrs. Isles, is that you?" And we would go, "Oh no, here we go again. We're gonna be here forever." And people would just run and hug her and say, "You know, you were my favorite teacher. Please tell us, are you still going to be at St. John's teaching kindergarten for my children?" And my mother would say, "That's a sign from God. That means I have to say yes to another year." And that yes went on for 44 more years. This job was not a job to my mom. It's a vocation, a calling to love children up right where they are, and their parents too, if need be, because when you've been teaching for 44 years, you have grand students, and everybody is your child. She spent countless hours in her classroom, often there until 10 or 11 at night, getting the classroom ready. And I just learned today, I was in my classroom today, and unfortunately for St. John's tonight, it's our play at Bishop Fenwick, and the entire faculty had to chaperone it. So they all sent their love to you, though. Everybody stopped by all day in the classroom and told me tidbits and anecdotes about things I never knew. And I'm an alum of the school, so I was there when she was actually teaching there. That was tough, but I loved it. They told me that when you were setting up the alphabets for your students, you would cut big pieces of burlap and trace the alphabet over the entire thing, and then teach every kindergartner to sew as the letters came up that they would be studying. And Janine Zito shared today that you were allergic to the burlap and would actually be sniffling and crying as you were cutting, and yet did it every single year. So I don't know how you did that. She would be at home teaching herself new languages to sing or pray with her students in Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, sign language, or any other language that reflected the cultural diversity of her classroom. Or she might be up making pudding to spread on the tables to teach them how to trace their letters in pudding, and then they'd all be licking their fingers. It's the most delicious alphabet ever. Or stacking cans of shaving cream to do the same. She might be tidying up the play structure that parents built for her in her classroom. Our dining room table was always piled high with things, activities that she was going to do for her kids. And because of that dedication, I never wanted to be a teacher. I thought, this is exhausting. Who would want to do this? But I am a teacher, and for the last 8 years, I've been blessed to teach in the same school as my mom. And it was amazing. It was amazing before she retired. And the best part of it is that I'm a junior high teacher, and when I would go down to visit my mom in kindergarten, I would say, how can you stand it? They're wiping their noses on you, you know? And she would come up to the junior high and say, aren't these beautiful children? You have my kids, I love them. But the junior high students would look at me in awe as they realized that Mrs. Isles was in fact my mother. And any discipline problems that I had just were blown out the window in about 2 seconds, so thank you. I owe you so much. Thank you, thank you. My mom lives by the motto that kindergarten is a time to nurture human beings. Not to worry so much about reading and more about sharing and being kind. It's not so much about a time to memorize math facts, but memorizing and understanding that God loves you just as you are. You might not be the brightest in the class, but it's more important to be the best human being that you can be, even at 5 years old, that it's more important to care about others more than yourself, to be proud of who you are and to know that you are loved absolutely. I just have a few things that I want that people sent to share with you from school today. Stella Iardi compared you to Tom Brady. You are our GOAT. And that just means the greatest of all time, Mom. It's not bad. I wondered at first what she was saying. So, but she said there would not be a day that my boys would not go to your classroom to give you a hug, and many times she needed a hug from you and a chat as well. Our current principal, Maureen Kelleher, said that you are the teacher that could not wait for the school year to begin, even though you had spent the entire summer and never left your classroom. Painting it and getting it ready for the new school year, and that you would be the one teacher who dreaded the end of the year because you would miss your kids. Tammy Cronin said that your ability to love and embrace every student as the individuals they are is not only heartwarming, it is a miraculous blessing. And Nancy Jenkins, your co-teacher for 26 years, said that again, another Tom Brady. I know, I told you she's a rock star. Another Tom Brady comparison. She said that the New England Patriots have Tom Brady, but St. John's School had Carol Isles, and that's far more important. And she said that you've brought joy to thousands of children and parents, and that she is the most grateful for having the best seat in the house to watch you do it for 26 years. And she said, Tom Brady wanted to play until he's 50, but Carol wanted to teach until she was 70. And then that became 75, and then that became 80. Kindergarten, mind you, kindergarten. And she said, no one will ever compare to you. And Maggie Farrell said that she owes the beautiful human beings that her sons have become, compassionate young men, because of the love that you gave them in kindergarten. And lastly, Mom, your legacy of loving to teach inspired so many of our colleagues. Many of them in the school were your students. Myself, my sister, both teachers, and my son, my mom's grandson, are teachers. So we thank you so much for your love and your dedication and your inspiration to us all. Thank you.
I had to use this because my computer broke. I cracked my tooth, and I'm saying, why did they pick me? Oh, can you hear me? Did you hear me the first time? Did everybody hear me about my tooth and my computer? So this is why I have this with me. And my grandson checked my speech And he tweaked it and everything, and I said, I can't use that. So every morning since I knew about this, I woke up at 5 o'clock, got on here and tried to make a speech. I've gone through 5 principals, and the first one said to me that, she called me up to the office one day, and she said to me, Carol, you need to write a book about the way you teach. And I said, I have too many words. I have too many words, I can't do that. And she says, well, how do you teach them to read? I said, I have no idea, which is true. And you only teach them to read if they can read. Kindergarten is not a place for that, at least as far as I'm concerned. Sister Lenore is here tonight, and one of my principals. And I said to her, what I loved about her is she came in and she said, throw away the books. And she said to me, but Carol, you never had any books, which is true. And when I would leave work, and sometimes I'd pick up the grandchildren, and I'd say to them, please don't talk to me for about 15 minutes, because I had to just relax. And my husband of 60 years, last week, put up with... And he put up with that table that was always covered. We had to eat on TV trays all the time. I'm not kidding. And when people would come over for a special holiday, I'd hide everything, then I couldn't find it again, start all over again. Okay, so she said so many things that I really don't even want to use this, but I'll have to get a little serious here. If I cry, I'm sorry. This was up on my wall that I asked one of my mothers to put up there. Children want to learn to the degree that they cannot distinguish learning from fun, and I truly believe that. And that reminded me, as I was sitting there, that the children would come in and say to me, Mrs. Owls, when are you going to teach us things? And I said, I am teaching you things all the time, because our parents said, you don't teach us anything. I said, work is play and play is work. You go home and you tell them that. And that's what I believe. Let's see. I don't want to talk too long here. I do think I have a charmed life, just because I have an incredible family, and I had incredible teachers to work with, and 5 wonderful principals that put up with the way I did things. I would walk through the halls with the children, singing and dancing and playing drums. And one of the things we used to sing is, reach out and touch someone's hand, make it a better place if you can. And I hope you all remember that. And my beautiful great-grandson that I'm taking care of, I just asked, I'd take care of him every day while they work. So I have not retired yet. I don't plan to ever retire. So let me just see. Okay. The last year that I was there, we were having a lockdown. And the children and I were huddled against a wall waiting for someone to open the door and tell them that they've been really great. So we heard the door unlock, the light went on, and the policeman looked in and he said, Mrs. Hiles, you're still here? Of course, it was one of my students. Oh, I said, I was going to say to him, not for long. So I was 79, and that's the year I retired, 2 years ago. Okay. All right. I would like to, I know you all know this saying, but I'd like to remind you again. 100 years from now, it will not matter how much money you had, the sort of house you lived in, or the kind of car you drove, but the world may be different because you were important in the life of a child. This is not a dress rehearsal. Thank you, and God bless.
I love that saying. Next up, we have, I'm better with this one. Next up, we have our good friend, Jack Marshall. John Jack Marshall. Many of us here know Jack Marshall as the husband of Elaine. and her constant companion in life. When you see the two of them together, you know you're in Peabody. And that Jack will be greeting you with that warm, affectionate smile and a kind word. His greetings aren't those typical greetings that you get that are kind of casual in nature. They're genuine. The type where you sense that the other person actually really cares what you have to say. I'm not sure how he remembers all of the students' names, the parents' names, and the many activities that they were involved in. But you could be certain that when you saw Jack on the street, he would always lead with, "So how's Brian doing?" And is he still involved in, and he was spot on. I'm just one person of the many that he knew that he had kids. Jack's personality and caring is clearly what made him a great teacher. Add to that his humility, and you have a person who gets to the heart of what it means to teach. Jack spent 32 years as a teacher in the Peabody Public Schools, and most of that time was at the high school level in the English department. While some teachers teach as a job, Jack Marshall taught with a passion for his students. Couple this with his encouraging personality, you can see why he was able to inspire students to excel. Jack's diverse talents included drama. I learned something new yesterday. I found out from Elaine that Jack is a card-carrying member of the Stage Actors Guild, as well as the AFTRA and the Equity Actors Guild. Can you imagine as a high school student being taught drama and literature or speech by a card-carrying, passionate enthusiast for the arts? Unbelievable. For Jack, the classroom was his theater. His lessons were his performance, but his audience were the young minds who he was determined to help understand what it meant to be human. Jack's love of drama made him a strong supporter of Stage One, right from the very beginning of the club. There was nearly no performance that was held that didn't have Jack out there watching, encouraging, and supporting his students. Jack took his passions in life and he molded them into instructional programs. As such, he created electives like mystery and detective fiction and sports writing, amongst other things. I found that fascinating, that he could bring, again, the everyday life into his classroom. A former George Peabody Legacy recipient, John Murtagh, once told me that if I wanted to be an effective teacher, which, by the way, at one time I did want to do, that I had to use humor to engage children. Jack obviously had gotten the same tip, because throughout his career he used his wit and his humor to engage his students. He added to that by using his love of drama to inspire their imagination. This is a true skill. This is what makes Jack a special person. We all know of people in life who know how to talk, but a more rare find is a person who knows how to walk the talk. Jack is truly one of those. For Jack, the classroom never ended. By showing up at all kinds of events, he let his students know that he was there for them as a caring and compassionate teacher, a mentor, and a friend. In short, he made a huge difference to the many he touched in his career. For this reason, and while he humbly told me he didn't think he deserved the honor, the Peabody Education Foundation is proud to have John Jack Marshall as a 2019 George Peabody Legacy Award recipient, and we want to thank you, Jack, for your many contributions to the education of our children and for making Peabody such a great place.
Thank you all. Thank you, Dave, and excuse me.
My sincere thanks and appreciation to Tom Gould and Dave and the committee and the PBA Education Foundation. Excuse me, and for those who nominated me for this award. Congratulations also to my fellow recipients, Carol, Maria, Ernie, Jody. I'm truly honored to be in your company tonight. I want to recognize my family and friends who are here tonight. My wonderful wife of 39 years, Elaine. My cousins, Sheila and Kathy. Okay. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law, Patty and Michael Ellis, are over here. Thank you. And my dear friends, Larry and Cheryl DiLorenzo, and Dennis and Linda Carumpus, who are here also tonight. Many of you may know that Dennis and Larry both had wonderful careers here in Peabody, both as educators and as coaches. And so it's a great honor to be their friends, and I really appreciate them all being with me tonight. I guess I'm a Tanner at heart. I was born and brought up in Peabody. Not many people are born in Peabody anymore since the old J.B. Thomas Hospital closed, but I was born in Peabody, grew up in Peabody, went to the Thomas Carroll School. Mr. Flanning was my principal. Being a Garden Park kid, that's where we went. So we had a lot of fun there at that time. And when I graduated from the old Peabody High School up on Central Street in 1960, seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? I never imagined I would end up teaching at my alma mater for over 30 years. But with the guidance and inspiration of many influential people along the way, my mother, my family, and lots of other wonderful people, and a lot of formative experiences as well, that's exactly what happened. Now, my class at Peabody High, class of 1960, had many very talented individuals, some of whom make significant contributions both in education, athletics, here in Peabody as well. For example, 3 of my fellow members of the football team, Leo Spindle, Dave Hallinan, and Pete Watera, are in the Athletic Hall of Fame here in Peabody. And during my time teaching at Peabody High, I would work with other classmates from 1960, Eileen Nally Rollins, Leo Spindle again, the man, the myth, the legend, Jack Olix, and Dolores Santarella Grenier. So it was really fun to touch base with all of those people again from my high school class. And during my teaching career, I spent 2 years, also spent 2 years at the Higgins briefly, where I had a chance to work with both Tom Hosman and Bob Rogers. So all these people, members of the class of 1960, so we were well represented. After graduation from Peabody High in 1960, I went to Brewster Academy up in Wolfboro, New Hampshire for a year, a PG year of studying and playing football. And later it was on to Salem State College, where I got really a wonderful, wonderful education. In addition to studying English is where I got involved in drama, and something I would later have a chance to teach at the high school as well. And with the encouragement and guidance of 2 of my professors at Salem State, Tom Luddy, and even more importantly, Dr. Michael Antonakis, some of you may know them, it was that a chance I had to act and be in a number of productions. During the time I was at the college, and actually there for a few years thereafter. Matter of fact, Bob Dunn, one of my, worked with me in some of the plays I had at Salem State. It's great to see you again, Bob, and glad you're here tonight as well. And so both Tom Luddy and Mike Antonakis are good friends and have remained close friends to this day, and they were just wonderful, wonderful mentors. In the fall of 1971, that was the first year of the new high school. I said to the mayor, it's time, maybe time for another new high school. That was the first time. There was a time of great hiring. There was a lot of people being hired at that time. 69, 70, 71 saw a big influx of a lot of young teachers. And so it's really exciting. There was just a lot of young faculty. And unlike today, most of them stayed in Peabody their entire careers. And as a result, you get to know people very, very well. It was like a big family, and we just had a wonderful time together. And we were just a real close group for many, many years, many of whom I worked with my entire career, all 30 years of the time I was at the high school. We young faculty members, and joined many of the wonderful veteran teachers. One in particular significance to me was a man by the name of Mr. Edward Gorman. I had Mr. Gorman as a teacher for English in my junior year of high school. And I always just remembered him as being so kind and decent, a real true gentleman, and it was really an honor to work with him. I'm sure he was quite surprised to see me as a fellow member of the faculty. At least he didn't say that he was too upset about it. But most importantly, it was at PVMHS where I met my wife, Elaine, a wonderful, kind person and excellent teacher. She was a well-deserving past recipient of this award, and it was her dedication to her students that inspired me to want to be a better teacher and a better person, to be honest with you. I was a lucky guy to find her. A lot of what I've accomplished is because of her, to say the least. Thanks, Elaine. In closing, I want to thank you all. I've worked, as I said, with a lot of wonderful people. My department, I have some great department heads, one of whom is here, Mrs. Michaeline Haig, who was the person I worked with upon the time I retired, just a great leader, a great mentor, a wonderful teacher. Yeah, really. Some really great department heads, a lot of great fellow faculty members. Some of who, for example, Bill Story, who's an accomplished author, who lives here in Peabody, is married to one of my high school classmates as well, Marie Dunn Story from another classmate in the 1960s. So it's kind of really gone full circle. So it's been a wonderful time. I enjoyed my time at the high school. It's been a wonderful experience. And I really am honored by this award. I'm honored to be in the presence of so many wonderful people. And it was really thrilling to see so many wonderful people here tonight. Thank you all, and I do appreciate the accolades that David gave me, and don't forget to tip your bartenders, okay? Thank you.
Jack Marshall. So certainly, last but not least, there you are. Hi, Maria, excuse me. Maria Ferry, Director of Career Vocational Technical Education. Is that the title? Awesome. For those that don't know Maria, Maria has spent 11 years in Peabody. She began a career in Peabody in June 2005 and retired in 2016. She then returned in 18 as the interim Career Vocational Technical Education Director. Maria is a recipient of the Outstanding Educators Award, Conan Fellow Award, and the Mary Upton Farron Award. Taking home the hardware. Maria has volunteered to be on numerous committees, including the Technology Committee, search committees for principals and assistant principal, as well as the Higgins School Building Committee and curriculum committees. Maria is heavily involved with the transition of programs from Peabody High to Essex North Shore Agricultural Technical School. She's constantly there, making sure Peabody is doing well on that end of things. She has been very instrumental in bringing the early childhood program and medical assistant program to Peabody High. She's been instrumental in writing and managing many vocational grants that benefited the high school greatly. Maria co-facilitated the think tank and was involved with the Why Peabody High program and Career Day. Maria is a member of the Peabody Rotary Club, and they're here to support her tonight, where she is highly valued and respected. She has collaborated with local colleges on articulation agreements. Maria most recently was instrumental in securing an agreement with Cataldo Ambulance as part of the medical assistance curriculum. Cataldo here? All right. Maria is loved and respected by her family and colleagues and students. She is a warm and caring individual who gives her all to better the Peabody Public Schools. It is truly my honor to present Mrs. Maria Ferry into the 2019 class of Peabody Education Foundation Legacy winners. Maria Ferry, please. Wow. Big ovation. You're welcome. It's all yours, and I'll be back up after.
So, good evening, everyone. Not too much pressure here, being last. Thank you, Peabody Ed Foundation. Thank you to my CTE staff for being here this evening. I'm so proud of all of you. To the selection committee and to my fellow Rotarians for being here in support, thank you very much. And to Mr. Buckley and Ms. Maniatis from the high school, thank you for being here on this happy evening and celebrating with me. To stand here this evening and accept this award in the presence of the people that I care most about, my family, to my husband Jim, who is my compass and has supported me in all of the committees that Tom mentioned. Many a night I'm going off in the car to a committee and my husband's like, where are you going? Who are you going with? What's going on? At first he was kind of suspicious, I think. He thought something maybe shady was going on. But when he found out I was at Haven from Hunger or I was working on some other committee, he was fine. But Jim, you are my compass. My beautiful daughter, Alexandra, who's starting her professional career as a public school teacher, 5th grade in the Everett Public Schools, 3rd-generation teacher. To my brother-in-law, Chris, my favorite brother-in-law. My dear Auntie Rosalie, and to my dear friends, Tony and Jean Quimbra and Stephanie, thank you for being here. You know, if Mayor Betancourt were to ask for volunteers right now to march right out the door and go down to Peabody Square and carry a banner or wear a sash that says, I love the Peabody Public Schools, I love the people in it, and I love the city of Peabody, I'd be the first one out the door, and I know there's be many to follow. But that's the best way that I can describe how I feel about this great city. Unlike many folks who've come before me tonight, I'm not from Peabody. I'm a Boston girl. And this Boston girl answered an advertisement in the Boston Globe 18 years ago to come to the city of Peabody because they were looking for a vocational director. Now, those of you who know me, and know me well, know that I like to drive in the car sometimes with my hair in rollers. It's kind of a funny sight. So up Route 1 on a torrential night, I drove with my hair in rollers, thinking, what am I doing? Radio blaring, and I'm saying to myself, Maria, what are you doing? You don't know one person in the city. You're leaving all the comfortable things that you know, all the things that you feel good about, the known, and you're going into the city of Peabody, the unknown. What are you thinking? But to my husband Jim's credit, he said, you know, Maria, after much discussion, he said, this is a good thing for you. I think things are going to be okay for you. So I'm supporting you. So thank you for that. So I drove up to the old administration building over on Lowell Street, and the assistant superintendent was waiting for me in the doorway with an umbrella. And she saw me getting out of the car, pulling out the hair rollers, doing the hair, throwing on the lipstick, and she said, you know what? You're going to do just fine. We're going to like you in Peabody. And it's really been true. It's been like that ever since. The best decision after marrying my husband, Jim, was coming to Peabody. What a great city, and what a great ride I've had over the past 18 years. I see Peabody as a great place to work. It's really full of so many resources. Now, if I go into Macy's and I want to return a pair of pantyhose for myself and I have the receipt, I'm shaking like a leaf. I have no confidence. But if I'm going into a business or some type of a hospital setting or a restaurant and it's for my students, I want to see the CEO. I want to see the president. I have no problem going right through the front door because it's good for kids. And it's always about being good for kids. Thank you. That's always been my mantra. It's, you know, from my third grade, my third year of teaching principal, Mary Morose, who said, Maria, if you always ask yourself that, is it good for kids, you'll always be fine in whatever decision you make. So thank you for that. Last Saturday, I was at UMass Lowell. I was at a robotics bot-ball competition. And that competition was sponsored by the Peabody Ed Foundation. The Peabody Ed Foundation, through a Best Bet grant, gave us our seed money for much-needed supplies. We would never have been able to be there had it not been for the Best Bet grant. Thank you. So 2 weeks before the competition, it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm up on the 3rd floor. I go down, I see all the students, they're all preparing. I go down to Mr. Buckley's office, I go, hey, Mr. Buckley, it's 4 o'clock. I got a dozen students up in A315, and they're not ready to come out of the building. They're in there, they're on the floor, they're doing the masking of the robotics, they're doing math, they're doing programming. We can't get them out of there. We can't get them out of there because they are so much in the zone. They are so focused and so happy and producing and feeling so good about what they're doing. I think they were there till midnight myself. The Peabody Ed Foundation gave us that award, but it wasn't about writing a check and we'll see you in June. What they provided to us and to those students was a lifetime, and I mean that word, lifetime, of memories and skills. The memories that they're going to give those students are sure the camaraderie of being there till midnight or whatever time they left, being in the competition. Those are memories, and those are really good. The skills that they're giving the students are producing a product, working under pressure, teamwork, making contributions to a problem. Aren't those all the skills that we want students to leave the high school with, to go to college or to go to a job? Isn't that what we're all about? The most important thing, though, I think the Peabody Ed Foundation did with this was they gave us a seat at the table. We never would have competed without that seed money. We've never competed at UMass Lowell. So thank you for that. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to be at the table. If you would ask me what's most important about being an administrator or teacher, it's being part of the community and having students use their skills in the community. And not only use their skills, but understand what the cause is, what the group is that they're working with, what they're doing. Having pride in one's skill set and being able to share it with others is one of the most important things that I can think of. So when I see in Peabody and I walk around the community, I'm reminded constantly about our CTE programs and what they do in the community. The cupcakes that are on some of your tables tonight were made by our culinary program. And in making the cupcakes, they learned about the Legacy Foundation. So they're learning as well as they're just producing. The Taste of North Shore, students have been involved with that program. No Child Left Hungry. So our students are involved with that program where they make a dessert for a child to take home on a weekend where maybe there isn't a lot of food around, and they learn something about that program. So they're producing, but they're also helping, and they're learning about other things as far as the community. Our medical, our blood pressure, 2 Saturdays ago I was at Leahy walking in the mall. Medical assisting students were helping people walking by, taking statistics and taking information with clipboards dressed in scrubs. You would think that they were part of Leahy, and they were helping with the blood pressure clinic. We've been involved with Cataldo, as Mr. Gould said. We were involved with Cataldo Ambulance. One of the students was in doing a ride-along, so she participated and she observed the ride. She wanted to stay like 2 extra hours. They couldn't throw her out of the ambulance, because she was so engaged in what she was doing. Again, learning and using your skills and looking at the community through the lens of someone who's got some skills to offer. This is how we create better citizens. Cosmetology. Our cosmetology program, right after the Boston Marathon bombing, they were the first ones that I knew of that did a fundraiser for one of the people that lost her leg. She was a cosmetologist. In order to help her get prosthetics, the cosmetology department did a fundraiser at the high school where they did free haircuts for people and did blow dries. And they're working next month for working on another volunteer project with opioid awareness. So they'll be doing a volunteer project and learning about the struggles with opioid addiction as well. So, those of you who know me also know that at nice occasions and very formal occasions, I like to do a toast. So if you have a glass in front of you, I'm going to ask you to raise it, and I think it's fitting that I'm the last speaker to do this. So please raise your glass, and raise a glass to the future children of Peabody, to the Peabody Ed Foundation. Continue the work that you do. And thank you, everyone, for coming tonight and celebrating with me, and also my other honorees. Thank you all for being here tonight. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Okay, so that ends year 7. More in store for year 8, but I have 3 things that I want you to see. First thing that I want you to see is we have talked for a long time about an appropriate place to provide recognition for all of you who are award recipients. And we're going to put it up on the screen so that you can see. That is the foyer of the Higgins Middle School, and your names will be emblazoned on that foyer for as long as that school exists. We chose the middle school because every student in Peabody goes through that middle school. Some leave for different high schools, but every student who comes from elementary school and is moving on goes to that school, and they should see the value of all that you've provided to this community. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart. That's thing 1. Thing 2 is those flowers, I'm not watering them tomorrow. So we would like you all to decide who at your table to please take home the flowers. And thing 3, my wife has had me going to a trainer twice a week because we're going away and she wants me to be in the best shape I can be. That's hard. So none of those cupcakes are coming to my house. So please take those cupcakes with you. You got friends, you all work somewhere, teacher's room, I don't care where they go, but they're not coming to my house. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for your attendance tonight. Please remember, PeabodyEdFoundation.org. We need your help to continue the good work that we're doing and to honor these people. Thank you. All honorees, please come to the stage so we can get your picture.